It's been a long time without you, my friend. But I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. These are actual epic gamer lines, a gamer quote that I heard from a gamer one time.
Very poggers.
And speaking of gamers, we are bringing back 5 things it did right and wrong. Now, we are going back to our roots, again, as all game developers do when they run out of ideas and realize they can't milk something for the lowest possible effort anymore and need to put in just one more notch of effort, but not enough to hurt yourself or possibly risk losing money. That's what we're doing here.
Right.
So we're bringing back 5 things it did right, and today we're going to be covering Assassin's Creed 2.
It's actually 5 best sandals in the Assassin's Creed universe.
Oh, they are going to be just an epic lot of picks. I've got to be honest, honorable mentions to the roof.
Exactly.
Here's the thing with Assassin's Creed 2. Now, overall, I think you can straight up say that most things in 2 are improvements from 1. Yes, there are things that are very classic about the first game that are fantastically handled. I love Altair as a character. I think he goes through a really cool character arc. I thought that all of the areas were handled very well, like Jerusalem, Damascus, all these different areas. Tie-ins to the Crusades and what's going on in the world during that time, along with your activities outside the Animus. There's a lot of stuff. But there's still 5 things that 2 did better. Number 5! The first one is better climbing. Now, this is one that I think you noticed immediately, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely way better than the first one. The first game's climbing was, to be honest, pretty bad. I mean, I understand it was the first game, so you kind of have to give them a little slack, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, especially comparatively now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's literally only one tiny little path on any platform that you can even climb up. And if you can't find it, you basically have to be, like, exact. Like, if you're trying to jump to, like, this ledge that's above you, you have to be exact, or else it's not going to work. And it's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
so,
it looks really cool. And I think that in terms of, if you're going back to old games, right, like really old games, then you jump into Assassin's Creed 1, I guess even if you're going from something like Valhalla to 1, it's playable.
Right.
You know, the climbing is still playable, it's still doable, the traversal is interesting. But with most games going forward, it did improve. You know, 2, Brotherhood, and then Revelations, they actually had the hook blade and stuff like that. I mean, they kept trying to increase your verticality and your ability to move around the map quickly. I think that the problem with 1 is not that it's really horrible or anything. It's just that in comparison, when you're looking back at it to every other game in the franchise, it's pretty much easily the worst, which is understandable. It's the first one. But it also just makes it kind of slow and clunky to get where you're going. If you're trying to get to, I guess, a vantage point or an assassination target, it takes a while.
Right.
And that's something that as they sped up, there are points, I think, in the series where it got a little too quick. Like, in my opinion, things like Syndicate, where it's like you're practically zooming up those buildings. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like they clearly were like, people don't have patience for this.
Right.
Or speed it up.
Well, yeah, Syndicate brought in the grappling hook.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that this was a good balance. You know, this era of 2, Brotherhood, Revelations 3, I think it improved it without, I don't know, basically getting rid of it.
Right. Yeah, they made more options. It opened it up. It wasn't as frustrating or clunky. You weren't sitting on a spot for 5 minutes trying to figure out what the exact possible ledge you can go to was.
Yeah. Number 4! The next one is improved customization. So there's so much stuff for this. I mean, they did start adding skins to the game, something that later on would become interesting because there was also a lot of cosmetic items over the course of this series that were very clearly thrown together. However, I think that it was a good addition because they had things like assassin robe recolors where you could dye your costumes at different cosmetic vendors and they would be different depending on where you were at in the story. So I thought that was always interesting. Unlockable items like Altair's armor. Some of the armor you put on over your robes looks different. You know, so like for example, if you get a leather vambrace or whatever, that's going to look a little different than a metal one.
Right.
I thought that stuff like that was interesting additions. And you had pointed out the homestead to me, which I can never say right. I say like Monterregioni. I don't know if
that's better than what I would say.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think that really improved the customization of the game as well, because you can actually customize your homestead. You can buy things like a brothel or like a bank, or like even like the tailor or the art gallery or whatever.
I appreciated that the brothel was first and the church was not mentioned.
You can also buy a church.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just a lot of different options of stuff you can do that actually not only just improve the looks of your homestead, like the church. The church doesn't really do anything. It just looks cool.
You can pray before missions if you want to.
You can.
You can really role play in the game. You can go in there and you say a little prayer, and then you head out to do the assassination.
You can, but I'm not going to pray to a Sky Daddy.
God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to murder this man. I like your Sky Daddy joke.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's stuff that it just improves the looks and they're cool, but there's also stuff you can buy that actually improve the overall gameplay, like a blacksmith, or, you can buy art and stuff like that. That also improve the property value of your homestead, too, and you get more money based on that. So
yeah, and I think, too, what you were going to say, too, about the homestead, too, that I did want to add in here, was something that I was going to bring up, so not to cut you off, but I had wanted to mention how there were more weapons to use with all these different stats, but that plays into the homestead too. Like, yes, you can get a Syrian sword, right? And that's different than the captain's sword.
Right.
But they actually both are displayed in your homestead.
Yeah.
There's like our...
inside the mansion.
Yeah, there's... what would you call them? Museum display cases almost?
Yeah.
Because the mansion, this villa is almost a... I don't know, not a testament, a monument to the Assassin Brotherhood.
Yeah.
In a way, like their history and art and different stuff, which makes the opening of Brotherhood much more sad.
Yeah.
But
yes.
I don't know. And what did you think about Monteriggioni just in general too? Because there was other stuff to do around there as well, other than even just customizing it, like things to find that.
Yeah, like there was some cool collectibles, and that kind of goes into our next point we actually had. But there's like cool collectibles there, like those Roman gods and goddesses statues that were around that I thought were really cool.
Yeah, I did too.
There was like an underground assassin's tomb, which was cool. And my favorite part about it was that underground base thing where you actually find Altair's armor. Mm-hmm. But it has like all the different assassin statues there, which I thought was really cool.
You pointed out there's even ties to later Assassin's Creed games. Didn't you say there's a reference to Odyssey or Origins?
Yeah, so I didn't know about it the very first time I ever played it, because obviously Origins had not actually been made. But I thought it was really cool when I went to play Origins. Not to get into some spoilers, but there's a character in the game called Aya, who later changes her name to Amunet, which is actually one of the characters in that underground base from 2, and Brotherhood, I guess, technically. And I thought that was really cool, because you didn't actually know that until near the end of the game in Origins. And then when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen that before. And then I went back and looked at that, and I thought that was really cool how they took a character from this game and actually made a game surrounding that character. So it definitely has some connections to like the Further Assassins world.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
They did a really good job. Also, I now realized why you looked at me funny is because I accidentally skipped an entry.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump back to that. Number 3. This is improved combat. Now, this is not one that I think needs very long in the video to specify, because in the first game, the combat's good. It's a basic game combat. There were things that they did interesting, like the counter kills and stuff like that was not something you were seeing tons of in games at the time, especially. It is something you'd see a lot of later in games, because a lot of games have copied Assassin's Creed. But it was pretty new in AC1. However, the combat was very elementary. You couldn't even use the hidden blade in combat, except for counters. You could counter with it. That's it. So there was a lot of stuff in the original game that was kind of like, oh, why can't I use that hidden blade? Because you can't.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, can I get a better sword? No.
Right.
Oh, okay. So I can't upgrade my sword here from like the Syrian sword to the captain's sword? No. It's just your sword. It was just stuff like that. I mean, it's not that it was bad at all. It's just that it was very basic in comparison to where the series went. Now, did it eventually go a bit far with it in things like Unity, where you have these insane weapons and half of them don't matter? And there is a little bit of a push for microtransactions, you know, where they were trying to get you to buy the Ubisoft points type stuff? Yes, absolutely. But we weren't there yet.
Or even worse, in Odyssey.
Oh, no.
How literally every building in the entire game has like a bunch of different loot boxes in it. And you can you just loot like a bunch of random armor and weapons. And you could be at like the end of the game and find like some just absolute trash weapon. And it's like, why? And like your entire inventory is just filled with all these like worthless weapons.
Yeah, that's stupid. But Valhalla, of course, corrected a lot of that.
They did. They really cut back on the amount of items you can find. But...
So that's good, at least. I don't know. It's interesting. It is a good thing that they did start adding those weapons and the combat, like, improved and all this stuff. But still, at this point in 2, the combat wasn't as good as it would get later on. You know, it was still overly reliant on just counter kills.
Right.
So it was better, but it was getting there. I personally think at around the time of 3 and on, their combat systems they started implementing were better.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they started
and
perfecting
more unique.
it. And...
Yeah, like I thought 3 was the perfected version of 1, 2, you know, Brotherhood Revelations 3.
Right.
And then they moved on from 3 to some different stuff in 4 and Rogue and Unity and all these other games that was, you know, improved as well. Number 2! The next one we have is expanding the world of the Assassin. So there's a lot of this. There's more lore, there's assassin tombs, backstory, hidden histories tied to the real world, the codex pages. You loved the assassin tombs.
I did, yeah. I think they're really cool just learning about the different assassins. And if you go, like, I already touched on this a little bit, but if you go down into that underground tomb thing from the main homestead, you know, the mansion, you can actually see the assassin statues, but it tells a little bit about what they did. So, like, for example, I was talking about Amunet earlier. It says Amunet assassinated this certain person. I've literally... Ptolemy, she assassinated, and then it like goes on to like assassins Darius and whatnot. I thought that was kind of cool. It just added a lot more to just the assassin's world than just simply, here's your main character, that's it.
There was some weird stuff in this though too. I know there's explanations later on, but like for example, it's like, hey, we remember, what was her name again? Aya?
Yeah, Aya.
Hey, we remember Aya and her accomplishments, but Altair, that guy from like 200 years ago, what did he do exactly? I don't know. You know, there was some weird stuff like that where I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, later on, they kind of explain it because he was kicked out of the Brotherhood and all this other stuff by like, you know, being overthrown and things.
Yeah, but then why is his like armor the center stage?
I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they were also like getting ahead of themselves a little bit in the writing in certain parts and then trying to tie things together later on. But it was done very well. I also do think, too, there's things to be found in here that I would say are easy to miss. Like, for example, actually, I rushed through some of those assassin tombs when I was a kid, and I missed some of the story to them.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't read every entry. Like, I found a couple of them, but when we went through one, because we're Let's Playing this game, you know, probably it'll start very soon on the Let's Play channel. Link in the description down below. Please check it out. Please clap. But when I went through this again with you, one of these tombs, there was a lot more story for one of these assassins that I remembered. I probably found 2 entries on my own and was just kind of, you know, moving quickly through it as a kid. But then we found like 6 or 7. When we were playing, and it was like, oh, there was a lot more story to this guy. I had thought originally that they were just kind of vague.
Right.
But they get pretty in-depth of their lives.
Yeah, it told like a whole backstory to them.
Yeah, and it ties into the main day, like the Apple of Eden. Like you find out that they were like trying to move these codex pages to get them away from the Templars so that they couldn't find, you know, pieces of Eden or like assassin treasures and stuff like that. I think that's very interesting because they found a way to tie it into the modern day main story. I think this is something as well, not to make this 5 things AC2 did better than other games, but this is something a lot of games, including later Assassin's Creeds, struggle to do, is tie side activities and side discoveries into the story.
Right. Yeah, this one definitely, I think, did it, maybe not the best, but one of the best in that regards, where there's just a lot of lore and stuff like connections and things like that that actually made you really care about the story and get into it. And it wasn't just like, oh, this is kind of a neat assassin story. It's like, no, this actually is really important.
Well, and as our resident Assassin's Creed Odyssey apologist, because you're the only person we know who liked it,
I did like that game.
I know, and I'm not picking on you here, but you know, as a person who actually liked it, didn't you say that was one of your criticisms of Odyssey, was that you felt like Origins, the main stuff and the side stuff, there was a lot of it, but more side stuff tied into the story, and you said Odyssey, there's a lot of side stuff you do where it's just like, hey, I'm a Greek hot man or woman, and I'm gonna do this mission, and it has nothing to do with like what's really going on.
Yeah, in Odyssey they added a bunch of like side missions that really didn't matter, and a lot of them were the same thing. So yeah, that was kind of my biggest criticism of that, was there was a big story to that, which was good. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but then there was a lot of side stuff that was like, okay. And then there was like also other side stuff that was really cool, like fighting a Cyclops, but it was like, okay, what do they have to do with the overall story? It just was cool.
Right, it's just kind of there.
Right, and it's cool, but...
It's hard to do that. It's very hard in game design to not artificially tack things onto the main story that are side missions, but also make them feel like they matter in the world. I know that's something that a lot of later Assassin's Creed struggled with, like especially Unity, where it was like all the side stuff didn't matter really.
Right.
But, you know, this was kind of the beginning of them adding that stuff and doing a good job with it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was great.
Number one.
It's number one.
Finally, you know, there's a lot of things we could talk about with Assassin's Creed 2 and make this a 30-minute video, but we should probably wrap it up with the last one, which is a complex yet simple storyline that's not actually difficult to follow, but I also wrote here, isn't for babies.
Very clever.
Well, it's not really clever. What I mean by that is they have interesting characters, motivations, history, situations, political intrigue, you know, conspiracy, all this different stuff, right? And human feeling characters. There are some things you can criticize. The opening act is slow. Absolutely. Right. And now, is it nearly as slow as Threes?
No, that is the worst. That is the worst.
But it is slow. However, it all makes sense. And okay, before someone calls me stupid, I'm somebody who has fun analyzing the story of Metal Gear Solid and Kingdom Hearts. Okay, I'm not sitting here saying like these are, you know, the peak streamlined, simplified stories. And I have an English degree, so I'm not a moron.
Weird flex, but okay.
But there's points in this series where the stories were a little all over the place in terms of both quality and where they were going. A really good example of that is Brotherhood, which in a way feels like, I honestly always thought that Brotherhood was the weakest of the Ezio trilogy. I know some people say the opposite.
I totally agree with you.
But Rome, amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. But however, the whole story is just about him making up for a mistake at the end of the last game that was kind of a weird writing decision anyway and out of character. That just didn't make any sense.
Yep.
And then the whole story is just him kind of running around trying to kill a couple specific people just to wrap up things from the last game. It feels like a big, better graphic add-on of Assassin's Creed 2. That's it. So, like, when it comes to the story of, like, some of the following games, like Brotherhood, I thought that it was kind of just all over the place in comparison to this story. It's a very simple revenge story, but it's got a lot of complicated elements to it with the Templars, the Assassins, the political stuff, the conspiracy, interpersonal relationships. I mean, there's a lot here without muddying the waters to the point where people are like, why am I killing this guy?
Right.
Like in Brotherhood, there were actual points in the story where I like zoned out because I was bored with the story and I was like, why do I have to kill this guy again? Why does this matter? I never felt like that in this game once.
Yep, I totally agree. The story was very direct and straightforward, and you can be a kid and get into the story. But with Brotherhood, there was parts that were very boring. I would agree with that. And I didn't have that same problem with Revelation either.
No, I love
Revelation
that story.
had a great story. You know, I'm one of the people that doesn't understand why people hated Revelation but loved Brotherhood. Because to me, it was like Brotherhood just felt like a DLC pack that, you know, it was good. I liked the game, but it definitely was not as good as 2 or Revelation.
Revelation to me felt like what Brotherhood should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have been like one story for Altair, one story for Ezio, and then a story where you mainly play as Ezio, and it ties into Altair.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it should have been. Brotherhood, I don't think was ever needed.
No.
However, it did introduce one of my favorite armors in the whole franchise, the Armor of Brutus.
That is pretty cool.
Which
I
is
love that armor.
Really cool. And the followers of Romulus and all that stuff.
Yeah,
There was really cool stuff in Brotherhood. But overall, I think the story, the world, all that stuff was just better in 2. and I will throw out here just really quick, it's not a point on our list, it's more like an honorary thing. This was the last game for a long time that didn't like really spit in your face if you didn't full synchronize the game, which was really annoying. And something that will definitely come up in later entries because it makes me mad.
Yes, full sync is terrible.
So
I praised God when they got rid of it.
I know. Well, now they're challenges.
Yeah, but they don't matter to trophies or anything.
No,
it's
or
the dumbest
they don't
thing
flash red and tell you you're a failure and your parents wish
Yes.
you were killed.
Jeez.
That's what it feels like. So Nate, any final thoughts on this? We did our 5, but just overall on the game. I mean, I love this game. I think it's generally, I love 1, but I think this is better in most ways. And it's just such a solid entry. You pick it up now even in things like the Ezio trilogy, other than the eyes, which I think really should have been fixed in that remaster. These games hold up.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, I like Assassin's Creed 2 a lot. I think it's one of the better games overall. It's not one of my personal favorites. I know I just offended like everyone.
Yeah, I know everyone whose it is. Like they say it's the best. It's the Black Ops of AC. Yeah. If it's not your favorite, what's wrong with you?
Right. I love Origins. I love 3. I know everyone like cringed, but I love Assassin's Creed 3. But overall, this game was pretty fun.
So you did like this game?
Oh yeah, I really liked the game. In fact, I like every Assassin's Creed except for Unity. But I did enjoy that one too, I will say.
Even Unity had the Eden sword.
It did, yes.
That was cool.
Which was really cool. So, yeah, I don't know. Overall, this game did a lot right, I thought. It did some things that were kind of annoying, but overall, it did a lot right. And I think it definitely improved number 1 a lot.
Yeah.
It added a lot more parts to the game, a lot more, customization options, just world building, everything that, 1 was a great start to the franchise, but this one definitely improved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on Assassin's Creed 2? I'd be interested to hear what is your favorite in the Ezio trilogy. 2, Brotherhood, Revelations. Is there any hidden gems in there that you like maybe DLC? I know some people really liked the disappearance of Leonardo da Vinci.
I didn't.
Oh, well, some people did. But let us know what you think down there in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe for more content. We do want to bring back more Assassin's Creed stuff. And 5 things it did right and wrong are something we will be doing, I don't want to say once in a while, but sometimes on this channel again, because it's been such a long time. The next one will be 5 things AC2 did wrong. So let us know what you think. We'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everybody, stay shway.